Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Outgrow's Market of the Month. I'm your host, Dr. Saksham Sharda. I'm the creative director at Outgrow.co. And for this month, we're going to interview Tanis Jorge, who is the founder of the Co-Founders Hub and co-founder at Trulioo. Thanks for joining us, Tanis.
Hi, thank you. I'm excited to be here.
So Tanis, we're going to start with a rapid fire round just to break the ice. You get 3 passes. In case you don't want to answer the question, you can just say pass. But try to keep your answers to one word or one sentence only, okay?
Okay.
So the first one is, at what age do you want to retire?
Never.
Okay. How long does it take you to get ready in the mornings?
20 minutes.
Most embarrassing moment of your life?
When my before and after photos in a weight loss program went on screen with a bunch of people.
Favorite color?
Blue.
What time of day are you most inspired?
Afternoon.
How many hours of sleep can you survive on?
10.
Fill in the blank. An upcoming marketing trend is blank.
Threads.
The city in which the best kiss of your life happened.
Surrey.
Pick one, Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk.
Oh, Elon Musk.
The biggest mistake of your career.
Not enjoying the journey as much as I should have.
How do you relax?
Just sitting and watching the world.
How many cups of coffee do you drink per day?
1.
A habit of yours that you dislike.
Procrastination.
The most valuable skill you've learned in life.
Say yes to opportunity.
Your favorite Netflix show.
Oh gosh. I'm gonna pass. That's too much to think.
The last song you've been listening to.
Brown noise.
And the last movie that comes to your mind that had a good impression on you.
Pass. I don't have time for movies and TV. I wish I could.
That's the end of the rapid fire round. So we can now move on to the longer questions, which you can answer with as much ease and time as you like. The first one is, reflecting on your own entrepreneurial journey, what role has self-belief played in your ability to overcome challenges and achieve success?
Man, self-belief is extremely important, but I think we would be naive to think that you always have self-belief. I think that is something that's similar to roller coaster, where you've got highs and then you've got lows. And I think sometimes in those lows, if we stay there too long or we let ourselves ponder in that space, then we can just sit there forever. And I think having the acknowledgement that self-belief is temporary, I think we can take it a bit more with a grain of salt and not be so destroyed by it. But I think self-belief is important. And I think that's where reading becomes essential, understanding the stories of people who have gone before. I think that is where that becomes extremely important, because you can hear the journeys of people who've also done the roller coaster, and you start to build a mind frame that allows you to know that this too shall pass. And so having belief in yourself, belief in your own niche, knowing you're that one unique person that can probably make that venture work, and not comparing yourselves to others. I think those are really, really important focuses.
So could you share a specific instance where your self-belief was tested as a solo entrepreneur and how you overcame the challenges to achieve success?
Yeah, it's interesting because So I've built multiple businesses over the last 25 plus years with the same co-founder. He was my best friend in high school, and we started our first business within a couple of years out of high school. And so we've been very fortunate to have, success in each of our businesses, having them all be able to have successful exits. And interestingly, at the when I stepped out of the day-to-day at Trulioo, and I went on to decide what am I going to do with my days, I started the Co-Founders Hub, which is what I'm working on now. And that was a really interesting shift because for the first time ever, I was building a business solo. Ironically, a business about co-founder partnerships. But it was a question for me to ask myself, hey, you've built all these businesses with somebody. Maybe that's the secret sauce. Maybe you don't have what it takes to do it on your own. And so walking this journey as a solopreneur and slowly starting to see the success that I want to have in this business has really helped with the self-belief. But that too is where I sit I'm kind of in the middle of the ride right now. I'm kind of here. I'm not quite totally doubting myself, but I'm also not fully in 100% belief that I can make it work. But that's the journey. And I think every entrepreneur goes through that. So, so I say right now I'm in that space.
All right. So what advice would you then give to aspiring entrepreneurs starting on a venture without a co-founder?
So the first thing to understand is the co-founder partnership the entrepreneurial journey can be very lonely. And there comes a point where when you're going through the challenges and the struggles that you might feel that there's nobody to talk to. There's tends to be a bit of a boundary that needs to be put in place between yourself and your employees and your suppliers and your vendors and your investors. And in that moment, you might struggle a little bit with just not having anybody to talk to. So a solopreneur, I would recommend that they find someone who could walk that journey with it, whether it be an advisor, trusted friend, someone who's not necessarily in the business with them, but who can be kept up to date on where your business is going so that they can give that advice that is applicable, but they're not necessarily decision makers. And I think that would be an important key because I think that's one of the biggest struggles that solopreneurs have, where when you're in a co-founder partnership, if it's strong, you have that person to lean on, you have that person to bounce ideas off of. And it's really what becomes one of the greatest assets about the co-founder partnership. So I think for a solopreneur, the advice to find someone to confide in and run ideas by becomes an important search.
And so on the flip side, what are some of the advantages of being a solopreneur?
Well, you don't have to make decisions as a democracy. You get the opportunity to make decisions on your own. I mean, I guess that's where self-belief becomes really important. If you really need to understand what you bring to the table, what you're working on, have confidence in your decisions. So if that's something that you really struggle with, then it might be valuable to find a co-founder or a trusted executive on your team that you can lean in on. But obviously, not having to split your equity, there's some real practical advantages to having a co-founder. But being a solopreneur. But the other advantage is not having to navigate the intricacies of the relationship, the human component of a partnership. That is the piece that tends to break down and be destructive. So not having to deal with the emotions and the uniqueness of another individual can be an asset, also a disadvantage.
So what do you think led to the entire rise of co-foundership? Because when do we really start seeing the immense burgeoning of co-founders in the tech scene? Does it coincide with the SaaS boom? Where does it come from?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think even just the term co-founder versus say business partner in a traditional, when I interview business partners in different industries, that's the terminology they use. But in the tech space, we use the term co-founder. And I think as we delve into innovation and disruption, that is where you have this uniqueness of where a co-founder would take place. It's when you think of an idea that has no comparables. And I think in tech, that's where that shows itself the most. You know, in a traditional business, yes, there's multiple accounting companies, construction companies, restaurants. There's things to take advantage of. But really founding a company, I think, comes from innovation and disruption. So I think just so the growth of the technology industry would have been where that co-founder terminology really began to grow. And like I said, it's unique to the tech space. There's a bit of a change in that definition from co-founder versus business partner. It's subtle, but it's there.
So as the founder of the Co-Founders Hub and the author of the Co-Founders Handbook, could you share some key insights or lessons you provide to aspiring entrepreneurs who are seeking these co-founder partnerships?
So I think the first thing to ask yourself if you want to be in a co-founder partnership is, are you that personality type that can handle it? I've interviewed and spoken with many people who don't have those personality traits. I say they don't necessarily play well in the sandbox. And so, really doing that reflection work on yourself, asking who am I? And will I do well with a partner? The other thing to consider is the type of business that you're building. Sometimes if the business is straightforward, if you're already a key expert and you're the sole functioning person in that business, maybe you don't need a co-founder. And so that would be something to reflect on. What kind of business am I building? But at the same time, if you are looking for a co-founder or you think you need one, then it's more than just looking for a skill set. Say you're opening a restaurant and you're a restaurateur. You know, a lot of times people think, oh, well, then I need a chef as my business partner. And I think that's a real simplistic way of looking at it. Even in the tech space, I get often asked by entrepreneurs, oh, I need a tech co-founder. And I usually want to dig a little deeper in that, because sometimes the skill set, it's important, but it may not be the key thing. Maybe you need somebody who's malleable, who's able to be quick on the draw. If you're building a business that maybe you want to grow and exit quickly, then you might be more important to find somebody who understands that tight time frame and is willing and able to put something quick and hard into it. And maybe you hire a skill set. So there's really a lot of self-reflection on yourself and your business model to decide what that business partnership is. As a matter of fact, we're building a product at the Co-Founders Hub that is a self-assessment. And that's exactly what it is. It's like 140 questions to walk through and really paint that picture of yourself and who you need to be looking for as a partner.
Are there any particular psychological models that you go into in this assessment? Are there is there a particular formula that you're using that you want to talk about?
Yeah, so we're working right now with a professor at the University of Oregon to really tailor a personality assessment that allows you to look at your personality through the lens of a co-founder partnership. And again, it's really understanding what those traits might look like in your business and which ones are essential to help your business succeed. Again, you might find somebody who needs to be steady on the ship, an executioner who can take a particular task and see it to the end. Or maybe you need somebody who's able to work on something and then pivot in a heartbeat. So these are some important personality traits that might be unique to that business partnership. So we work through that, including questions about your conflict style. What is your learning style? These are really, really important to identify early in the partnership so that when you're trying to communicate, which is the foundation of a strong partnership, that communication can be specific to the 2 or 3 or 4 individuals in that partnership. And so we really take what is maybe common assessments that you would find, but throw them through the lens of a partnership and how that will allow your partnership to flourish. So those are some key things there.
So it essentially basically sounds like matchmaking, but for founders.
It's true. There is a lot of that. There's a lot of commonalities between finding your match in life and also a business partner. The only difference I will say is that in, say, a marriage, the goal is to really make the other person happy, and that sometimes can trump your own happiness. But what I tell co-founders is you need to look at almost like you're married to your business, and the co-founders have a requirement to make sure that the business is the central piece and the central focus. And if you put things through that lens, then you can actually make decisions without that personal emotion that can happen. I always say, for an example, if a co-founder wants their son or daughter to work in the business and you know that maybe that's not the best option, you can say, hey, is this the right thing for our business to have your son or daughter in this management role? Or maybe we need to find someone outside of our partnership. So that's a great sort of philosophy to have in your partnership, making your business the core focus, not necessarily ensuring that each other's needs and emotions are met.
So let's talk about Trulioo a little. So as a co-founder of Trulioo, could you discuss the early stages of building the company and laying the foundation of its growth, and tell us what it's about for the audience that doesn't know? And how did you decide your roles and responsibilities as founders?
Yeah, so Trulioo was a kind of a culmination of our previous 3 companies that we had built together. Trulioo is one of the leading providers of identity verification software. And it really, our first 3 businesses were in that space, data-driven businesses. And Trulioo was where we went forth in a more innovative and disruptive way. And so when it came to us choosing our roles, we had kind of already fallen into where we excelled in our roles. But that said, every business is different. And I think when I talk to founders who are repeat founders with the same co-founder, I often tell them, start from the beginning as though you had never been business partners before. Really, once again, look at your business model and say, what's different this time? Maybe our skill sets are better suited in a different role. And what might change in this business that we need to reflect on and not automatically presume we will carry on like we did in previous businesses. And we had to do that as well in Trulioo as the business scaled and grew past and beyond what our previous companies had ever grown to. We really had to sit down and reassess where we would spend our time. And obviously as well, it allowed us to hire people who started to take roles and responsibilities off our plate, and we could really tailor and be niche in where we excelled. And so that was one of the differences that we found we had to do, was communicate quite frequently as the business scaled and said, okay, are we where we should be, and are we where we want to be, which is another piece, another component as well, especially as your business grows.
So speaking of identity verification, it's becoming, well, it already has been such a big thing, and now it seems to be being implemented in all over the internet. So what do you think the future of it holds? And
Yeah, it's extremely, it's an exciting time to be in the identity space. There is a lot of options available, and the business cases for each one vary so much that I think a collective approach to identity is what will need to happen. I think we think constantly from the lens of a first world potentially, but understanding that a lot of third world or emerging markets maybe don't have the capability to jump into high technology where you have people in rural parts of countries that don't have access in the same way first world does. So we need to really be aware and accepting of the fact that there needs to be a progressive approach towards identity. And so the sky's the limit. Very exciting.
And what do you think of the interweaving of blockchain and identity verification, if you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, again, it's the same scenario. I think this industry now is ripe for innovation. I think anybody who wants to become knowledgeable on AI and blockchain are going to be able to come up with really creative ideas and ways to innovate. I don't think we can have a crystal ball anymore. technology is shifting and changing so quickly that what is a great technology now in 18 months is obsolete. So I think I think that this is a great time for entrepreneurs to try things. This is where we build on the shoulders of others, and we accept the fact that this is our new world that we're living in that's going to be fast-paced. So I think it's super exciting. I think it gives people the opportunity to try their hand on any idea that they have, because who knows what's going to take.
Right. So speaking from your own experience, but also of co-founders in general, because I guess co-founders need to be aligned often, how did you manage and lay out the decision-making process in these cases?
So I use the analogy of a ship. So if your company is a ship and you are the founders, you're both basically standing at the helm of this ship, and you are both holding on to that wheel, the steering wheel. And so alignment is that you're both holding it true north in whatever direction that you want to go. But if founders and co-founders are not talking about not just the plans for the next week, the next month, the next year, if they're not actually thinking about even long-term, looking towards an exit or looking towards an acquisition, then they're going to be pulling on that wheel in a different direction. One might be like, hey, in 10 years, I want to have this company acquired for $1 billion. They're going to make decisions, even in their minds, just about how the company should go. Whereas that the other founder is contemplating, hey, you know what? I'm going to build this to a point in 3 years, and then I'm going to step away from my role and find a replacement for myself. They too will make slight different decisions. And that tug of war can begin to happen. And that's where mistrust, resentment, conflict can arise. So to me, the most important way that a partnership can be aligned is that there is a real intentional desire to be communicative. So where on a daily basis, you're sharing what you completed in the day, where you plan to go weekly, monthly, annually, sitting down and really digging in and knowing that the breakdown of that co-founder partnership could mean the breakdown of the company. And so I think we're not shining enough light on that important factor. Statistically, 65% of business partnerships are going to fail because of issues between the founders. So this is a huge factor. This isn't about revenues. This isn't about building a strong partnership, or sorry, a strong product. This is about the 2 people or 3, 4 people at the helm. So it's very important that co-founders really take the time to ensure that their relationship with one another is healthy.
And so how can co-founders then strike a balance between specialization on the one hand and then the need for cross-functional knowledge on the other?
Yeah, I think it evolves. I think as your business grows, in the beginning, you have to be a jack of all trades. You got to be able to be, you handle marketing, you have to handle your bookkeeping, you have to handle being the janitor in your food room. It really is requirement. But once again, kind of going back to the other question, as your business scales and grows, I think really identifying what each founder's skill set truly is and being able to hone it and take advantage of it becomes important as the roles shift and change. And not being afraid as founders to hire, finding people to replace yourself if your skill set or your desire in that business stage has maybe been tapped. And it's okay to find somebody who can take on that role of responsibility. So specialization happens eventually, but I think it's very important for founders to eventually find out where they're best suited in their own business.
How would you then, in light of all this, compared to co-founders of Google, for instance, hiring a CEO and all of these big companies that eventually just hire the CEO and then take a step back? Do you think that is the way things should be done?
Yeah, I think it's important. And I think that particular move requires maturity, because I think it's when you build a business, that business is your baby. Having been there, I know what it is to have a company be built. And then eventually, for me at this point now, I'm no longer involved in the day-to-day. I even stepped out from the board. So now I see my baby out there in the world in the hands of somebody else. And it's a very weird feeling. However, as any parent would say about their own child, they know eventually that that might be the best bet. The best thing for it to be is put into the hands of somebody who can mold it and shape it in the next stage and direction. So it's different for every founder. For some, it might be better to find that person early stage. It might be better to find somebody in the Series D round. But I think it really, in the end, the right person at the helm of that ship really is the advantage to everybody. So I think a founder needs to, again, be very self-reflective. Am I the best person to be leading this company now? Or can I find somebody who's aligned with my values, who's aligned with my expertise and is willing to take what I know about what I think the future should be and interact or interoperate with their skill set of scaling a business to the next level? And so it's tricky and it's hard and it takes maturity and it takes, it's a search, but I think it can definitely be worth it. And I think if you have a plan for it yourself as a founder, then you're not at risk of your investors telling you it's time to go. It's better to control that move yourself than wait for your investors and shareholders to ask you to step out.
So speaking of a co-founder like Jack Dorsey leaving Twitter to a CEO who then gets hostile takeovered by Elon Musk, who comes from the outside, and now Twitter is in shambles pretty much. How would you trace this from a co-founder's hub perspective, where this company went from being with its co-founder to a CEO to a hostile takeover acquisition? Or
I think it's left to be seen for any business where a CEO will take it. I think sometimes we can have a vision for the company and think we know where it needs to go, and then but having never maybe taken the company past that level before, you have to acknowledge your ignorance and you have to acknowledge that you put somebody in place that should know what they're doing. And unfortunately, you have to leave that up to them. You have to wash your hands of it. You don't necessarily get to. You've stepped away, and what everybody's journey is running a business is going to be their own. And so you have to accept your decision when you put somebody else in the control of your business, and know that you don't really have any more say. And you can only but look at your own journey as a leader. And I think that's really important for entrepreneurs to know. You will leave a legacy, and you will have a portion of your life where, that person ran that company during that time. And I think as a leader, you need to just focus on your own time. And if you pass that torch on to somebody else, you kind of get to wash your hands and say, you know what? I did this while I was running the business. This person had full autonomy to do it their way. I had no control over it. It wasn't me, trying to make decisions. Once you're out of that position, you let it go and you say, that's not now that person's journey. And so hopefully you put somebody in place that you trusted what their vision was. But in the end, you can wash your hands of it.
All right. So the last question for you is of a personal kind. What would you be doing in your life if not this right now?
You know what? I would probably be, I'd be traveling a lot more. I love to travel. I have a passion for starting businesses. It is something that has always been something that plagues me. I'm always thinking of different ideas. So I would probably just be exploring more opportunities, different opportunities. I love the novelty of coming up with an idea and then trying to figure out how to bring it to life. So I'd probably start a business, but I would do different things, maybe more traditional businesses. Who knows where it would take me?
All right. Well, that was the last question. Thanks everyone for joining us for this month's episode of Outgrow's Marketer of the Month. That was Tanis Jorge, founder of the Co-Founders Hub and co-founder at Trulioo. Thanks for joining us, Tanis.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Check out their website for more details, and we'll see you once again next month with another Marketer of the Month.